All right, welcome everybody to our Lunch and Learn today. I'm Jen Welling from the Illinois Environmental Council, and we have been organizing this series of Lunch and Learns for the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, just for folks to learn about potential and upcoming opportunities that are part of the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. We have a series and playlist on YouTube that you can watch, and it includes also a previous one that John Delurey did on inclusive financing. So I highly recommend that YouTube playlist, and this one will be on there after we're done. But I'm excited for today's because I think this is the one that we get the most questions about from anybody, which is solar and storage opportunities for individuals that are part of the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. And we are really excited to have John Delurey, who is at Vote Solar as the Senior Midwest Director. And he's also a Board of Directors member of the Illinois Environmental Council and a steering committee member of the Clean Jobs Coalition. So really excited to hear from him on his presentation. And this will be recorded. We will share the YouTube later with the slides. So thank you again, John, for always being willing to share your knowledge with the masses, and go ahead and share your screen and get going. So thank you.
That sounds great. Thanks so much, Jen. Thanks for having me on, and thanks to the whole IC crew for pulling this together. So I'm going to share my screen. And let's go slideshow. All right, Jeff, I can see you. Can I get a thumbs up? Great. So we have 49 slides to get through in what I hope to be about 40 minutes to save plenty of time for questions towards the end. So there will be a slight break. There's a 2-minute video about halfway through, and I'll probably use that time to answer some questions as we go. So if you already know some of the questions that you want to ask, or if any questions come up during that first half of the presentation, please feel free to post some of them in the chat, and that can help me guide the second half of the presentation, and I can sort of adapt as we go. But the focus of today's conversation is on customer opportunities, right? We spent a lot of time, pretty high altitude, talking about policy goals around climate justice and around renewable electrification and decarbonization. We don't spend as much time thinking explicitly about the customer and about the beneficiaries and those that could tap in directly to these legislative opportunities and do their part to tackle the climate crisis and to put a little bit of extra money in their pocket. So we're going to take a pretty crash course approach to the solar and storage landscape. And let's just dig right in. So I'm going to start by giving a little bit of background into Vote Solar and into myself. Vote Solar is a nationwide solar and climate justice advocacy organization. We're a nonprofit. We're on the board of IEC, helping them do their incredible work in Illinois. But we also focus on some other states. So we have some active legislative campaigns in Michigan and Minnesota, as well as keeping a close eye on CEJA implementation and other priorities here in Illinois. So before I dig too much into this, by way of just a little bit of background on my end, I love solar. Vote Solar is a really good fit. And I spent a couple years overseas working on off-grid solar and electrification. These were tiny systems with tiny batteries that were enough for a few lights and a cell phone charger. And that's sort of when I first fell in love with solar and the opportunity that the technology provides. Was working with families and communities to go straight from kerosene and candles, which are dangerous and ruin indoor air quality, to solar electricity. But that's when I started to realize that a lot of the work was back here at home, and that the climate crisis was largely the US's responsibility. And when I realized that there are all sorts of exciting solar opportunities here, I dug right in. And I've had a couple stints with solar companies, including working on some of their sales teams. So apologies in advance if any of this sounds like a pitch. It probably was at one point. But the idea here is to start with rooftop solar. We'll touch on net metering pretty quickly. Then we'll talk about some of the battery storage opportunities, including the new storage rebate that is in CEJA. We'll continue on to community solar and some of the opportunities that come from that. And I'll be leaning heavily on the Citizens Utility Board, who have a great resource for community solar that I'll point out. And then wrap up with Illinois Solar for All, the specific sub-program for low-income Illinoisans. So just to flesh out the difference between community solar and rooftop solar before I dig in. Community solar, right, you virtually own solar panels in a larger project. It can be a great opportunity for those who can't tap into rooftop solar. And I'll get into who those customers might be in just a second. And rooftop solar is, it is not just on your roof, right? It's behind the meter or customer sited renewables, but it is designed to in part offset your load, the amount of energy that you use as a customer, as a business, as a church, as a farm. But you are still connected to the power grid in almost all cases. It's rare that you have a fully off-grid system. So rooftop solar is first. Also known as behind the meter, also known as distributed generation, also known as customer sited. For whatever reason, we in the energy world love to use wonky and inaccessible language, but I'll be calling it rooftop solar just for ease of access here. But you get the idea. It's not always on the roof. It's really designed to be customer sited. So if you get 100% offset, meaning that the solar system produces as much energy as you use over the course of the year, I mean, that's the sweet spot. That's when you know that you are producing the right amount to offset your usage. It's kind of what you're aiming for. And not all homes can do that. But even a 50% offset or 60% offset is still resulting in pretty significant solar savings. So how do you know that you're a good fit for solar? Well, Google has this thing called Project Sunroof. It's not the most sophisticated model of sun hours or solar feasibility, but it's good enough to get a start. And then, as always, I'd recommend reaching out to some solar companies, getting some quotes. If you or anyone you know is interested in solar, they'll have better technology and be better able to predict how much sun your roof gets. But this gives you a rough idea, right? Here's the governor's mansion. Light yellow is good solar possibilities. Like this roof face is facing south, so it gets that much more sun over the course of the year. This face up here, this north face, gets less sun, and so it would be less feasible for solar. And that's important because that's what you're aiming for. It's not just the number of panels you have, but the amount of energy that those panels produce. So you'll notice, right, this house on the left here is surrounded by likely big, beautiful trees. But as a result, it doesn't have as good of solar possibility on the roof. They probably don't have high air conditioning bills because of those trees, but it's just a reminder that not all homes or businesses are a perfect fit for rooftop solar. And over here, you can see it's, good, not great. So that's the first thing to really think about. The other is roof and electrical, among other things. So some roofs don't have the structural integrity to support solar panels. Some customers choose to just redo their roof in order to support solar. Some customers aren't fully prepared for that expenses, but it is, typically the solar panels are on your roof for 20, 25, maybe 30 years. And so it's better to have a newer roof that is under those panels. It's easy enough to remove the panels and replace the roof, but you get the idea. Electrical, similarly, it needs to be up to snuff, up to code, and not looking like this. So there are just customers who might not qualify because they're not interested in doing that upgrade. There are 4 primary ways to go solar as a customer. You could purchase the system and just pay in cash. You could get out a loan, right? You could qualify for a loan and pay with somebody else's cash. And those tend to work similarly in ways that I'll describe in a second. You could do a lease where you don't actually own the system. A company owns the system and you have a flat fee for that system each month and you get the solar savings. Or a power purchase agreement where, again, the company owns the system, but instead of it being a flat fee, you're essentially paying for the energy based on how much power or energy the system produces. Those are similar too. So I'd sort of group them in the top 2 and the bottom 2, as you'll see in a second. Yeah, but what about those incentives, right? This is where the CEJA magic begins. So for a purchase or a loan customer, somebody who is essentially owning the system, they might pay for the system, or they might get a loan that in turn pays for the system. But then a big chunk of that system cost is paid down within the first couple of years in most cases. So there's the federal ITC, the investment tax credit. That federal tax credit is worth about 26% of the total system cost. So whatever you paid, you get 26% off when you file your taxes as essentially a reduction in whatever taxes you owe. Caveat there, which I'll address later, is that you have to owe taxes, and not everybody does. In fact, a lot of people don't, especially lower income Illinoisans. So that is a wrinkle in ensuring equitable access to solar. But here's where, again, the CEJA element comes in, the RECs. And you've probably heard a lot about RECs, short for renewable energy credits. And depending on the system, depending on how sunny it is, depending on how, like, what we call productive those panels are, it can be a range of value from 15 to 35. That honestly, in some cases, it could be even higher. But that comes as a check in the mail, either to your company, who then pays you, or it gets to you and you pay back the loan. The idea is that you're getting a big chunk of that system cost removed from the total sticker price. So then you're dealing with, instead of a massive investment, a significantly smaller investment by year 2 or 3. And each month you are getting a little bit of money back until your system is paid off, right? So you're no longer paying $100 a month for your electric bill. Your electric bill is free or close to it. And so all of those savings rack up until the system is essentially paid off. And you'll see that in just a second on a different slide. Actually, sooner than I thought. So this is just an example that I had about a system that was, roughly $20,000, which is perhaps an average sized system. You see this really dramatic reduction in the total amount owed. And that's thanks to that federal tax credit and the REC, the renewable energy credit. And so by year 2 or 3, instead of trying to pay back a $20,000 system, you're paying back an $8,000 or $9,000 system. And it does take time, right? The payback period, which I think a lot of customers are looking for, takes about 9 years for this system. But after year 9, your power is free, your system is effectively paid off, and you're just making money. So it ends up being an investment. And that's one thing I wanted to slow down on real quick. The whole point of RECs, the whole idea of incentivizing this system, right? The idea of using state money to reduce the payback period from 15 or 16 years to 8 or 9 years and encourage customers to go solar is because they are putting little power plants on their roof. So instead of paying a bunch of money to coal companies or gas companies, each customer is contributing towards the overall energy needs of the state and doing their part to get a renewable energy future. So it's pretty exciting stuff, and I'll touch on that a couple times as we go. And this is sort of a hint about full and fair compensation, which I'll get to in a second. Slightly different with a lease or a PPA customer. So again, remember, these are systems that you don't necessarily own. Instead, a company is essentially leasing the roof space on your roof. The good news is that you don't need to worry about the tax credit or the renewable energy credits, those state REC incentives. Instead, the company handles all of that. They're the ones that claim the federal tax credit because they own the system. They're the ones who claim the RECs because they own the system. And so instead, they pass along those savings, all of that money that comes from those things, to reduce the monthly payment that you owe them for that lease or for that PPA. And so in most cases, you start off saving money immediately, and that savings increases over time. Right. So in this scenario, in most cases, you have 2 bills. One would be from your power company for whatever you owe or for the fixed charges. And then a second bill from your solar company to have that monthly lease amount. But when you combine both of those, they tend to be lower than whatever your original electric bill is. It's not always the case. And just like anything else, you should get multiple quotes and figure out what makes the most sense for your home. But in most cases, it is a reduction in your bills. The caveat is that those savings, right? If you fast forward 20 years, those savings will probably be less than what you have made as a return on your investment if you're able to purchase the system or get a loan. Depends on a lot of different factors, but just flagging that either way you save a bunch of money, you tend to build more wealth and save more money if you own or if you pay it off via a loan. But both are really good options. So a couple changes on the horizon for folks, whether you're a customer on the line or know some customers who are interested. Current federal policy, which is a crapshoot, and thanks IEC for continuing to work on some federal changes. But the current trajectory is that that tax credit, that 26% tax credit, which was once 30% not too long ago, is scheduled to decline to 22% by 2023, and then 0% by 2024. So that slice of the solar value stack of the payback period is on schedule to decline and eventually disappear for residential customers. So wanted to flag that. Good news is that thanks to CEJA, the Illinois REC incentives are on track. They're on a much more stable foundation. It's likely that they will continue into the foreseeable future. Eventually, interest in the programs will likely grow, and there could be a wait list. So it could be some time before you get your RECs or are allowed into the program. The other thing that I don't have on this slide but wanted to flag is there's just a lot of swirling policy complications with solar. There is this federal trade tariff investigation that I won't dive into here, but the price of actual solar equipment, of solar panels, can fluctuate a little bit, and is already fluctuating a little bit because of that investigation. So just the flag that we need strong solar support, and the last thing we need is the government actively removing some of that support as they're threatening to do at the national level. Right, NEM, also known as net metering. This is how that payback period works, right? You saw that it was that smooth orange line to pay back the system. This is what that means. So essentially, panels on your roof, sun hits the panels create electricity, the electricity gets converted from DC to AC. A lot of that power is used in your home at that moment. So your fridge is running, right? Maybe your AC is cranking because it's sunny and hot out. A lot of that power is used on site immediately. What isn't used, let's say it's a sunny spring day. Remember those? Maybe one day we'll get those again, but it's a sunny spring day, your AC isn't on, but the sun is hitting your roof. You might be producing more than you are consuming. So excess energy goes back onto the grid. You are compensated for that, right? You are now a little power plant selling into the grid. And in Illinois, for the investor-owned utilities, so Ameren and ComEd for most purposes, you are able to sell that excess power for the same amount that you buy that power. So you sort of use the grid as your little piggy bank. You sell on those nice sunny days and you buy for free, essentially. You trade power at night or when it's cloudy or snowy. And those credits kind of roll over month to month. And so it allows for different fluctuations within the year. This shows that, right? That sort of like overnight, you have inflow, which is power coming into your home or into your property. And then during the day, right, the sun rises, it shines down on your system, you produce a ton of energy, and you consume some of that on site, but you do push some of it back to the grid, which is that outflow, that blue sort of negative bar here. And then you're back to inflow once the sun sets. And so you are helping to avoid some of the peak generation as you go. You're taking a lot of strain off the grid. And so you are designed to be rewarded for being a little power plant and selling into the grid. I'm gonna skip this because it gets a little too wonky for our needs, and I think we're running a little behind. But to oversimplify, right, you are using the power grid as your battery with full retail net metering. You're just trading excess generation back and forth to ensure that you really are completely offset by solar energy. This is from my system. So you can see a cloudy day, right? My solar panels weren't producing a ton, which is the orange bar here. And then on this day, my system was. And so it offset that peak, right? The peak that you see here essentially was offset because of this power I was creating on my roof. And these bars going to the negative, which means I was sending some power back into the system to support some of these other, like somebody else in my neighborhood. I'm gonna skip through that, a little too detailed. Wanted to flag, since we tend to skip through co-ops and munis, that while all Illinois customers have access to the REC incentives as of a few years back in the wake of CEJA, not all customers have access to this full retail net metering policy. And co-ops and munis in particular, right, these are rural electric cooperatives and municipal utilities. They cover a lot of small towns and rural areas of the state. They have various policies for insurance and for compensation for excess generation. So I would recommend you talk to your local utility or join the Muni Co-op group of the Downstate Caucus, who is currently duking it out with some of these munis and co-ops to figure this out. Okay, that was the rooftop solar section. Now we're into the battery storage phase. I don't have as much information here, in part because it's so new, but I will describe some of the vision and the gist of a couple of the policies in CEJA. So you might be thinking, right, I've got a battery system, I'm going to go off grid. It's not typically the case of what happens. Most often, customers invest in a battery to ensure reliability. So it allows you to ride through a power outage. It allows you to ensure that your systems stay online. This is especially important for customers who might have healthcare needs or who have vital systems that need to stay on. So batteries are great for anybody to ensure that you don't have blackouts, right? It's annoying enough to have to reset the oven clock, but for some customers, it truly is life-changing and potentially life-saving. Most battery systems that we see on the market today provide 10 to 15 hours of power, so you can glide through a pretty severe interruption of your electricity. What we expect to see, and I think I'll touch on this in a second, is eventually you are providing a grid service. You have this battery at your disposal, and the idea would be to have the utilities incentivize customers to sell power at certain times to help offset their power needs, right? So rather than having to turn on some natural gas peaker plant, they could ask a bunch of customers to discharge solar power or other power from their batteries to help offset these peak events. So that's kind of the vision we're getting to. And then probably within the next 4 to 6 months, there will be a storage rebate for individual customers who want to get a battery, who want to tap into this resource, thanks to CEJA. So this is about as reductionist as it gets, but you may have heard of the Tesla Powerwall. I think it's probably the one with the most name recognition. It's certainly not the only one, and there's a lot of other great sort of customer-sited residential scale batteries. But the Tesla Powerwall, I understand, is about 13.5 kilowatt hours. Don't worry too much about what a kilowatt hour is if you don't know, but that's how we measure the size of these batteries. And in CEJA, there is a rebate of $300 per kilowatt hour to help incentivize customers to go and commit to storage and play that role as an active customer in the grid. So for a Tesla Powerwall, you'd be looking at a rebate of about $4,050. And again, it's going to depend on how big the battery is, how big the rebate is, but that rebate is set in statute, thanks to CEJA, and will be a really important way to bring batteries to customers, to make them a little bit more affordable and to have them play that role in the power grid as we move forward. So I'm going to do just like 30 seconds of this because it excites me, but it's, again, zooming out a little bit away from the customer and thinking more about the grid. This is the old grid, right? Coal, nuclear, gas. You had this centralized generating station that then had to be sent through these really large transmission lines. If you've ever driven near any of the big power plants, you'll see those giant lines, the 230 kilovolt lines. And then it has to get to another station where it gets stepped down, right? And there's line losses along the way. You then have these converters, and then eventually it gets to your home and they have to measure exactly how much power to put into the distribution grid to ensure that when you flip the switch, your lights turn on. This is the grid of yesterday and today, but increasingly we're looking towards this as the grid of the future. This is a grid that allows customers to play a more significant and engaging role within the grid, right? All these things I've been describing about committing to rooftop power plants and the battery itself being its own little power plant to hold on to and to dispatch energy. That's where we're headed, whether the utilities like it or not. And it's going to save customers a ton of money. It's going to help the overall grid. It's going to reduce costs. It's going to decarbonize. It's really exciting stuff. So again, I know it's a little bit further from the customer perspective, but I couldn't resist. Community solar is up next. Oh boy, we got animations. I'm sure I was supposed to present that in a different way. So ultimately, access to on-site solar or rooftop solar is somewhat limited. Right, we have a number of customer-sited solar energy systems. This is back in 2010. We're now well over the 2 million mark that we saw towards the end of 2018. I think we hit 2 million in early 2019. So we are looking at this slice representing the customers that already have solar. You do have a lot of customers who don't yet have solar, who would make great candidates for solar. And those are on the list, right? Those are the customers we're trying to get to and work with to figure out how we can get them some version of rooftop solar because the savings are more significant. But that still leaves a huge chunk of customers, of households, that don't have good solar access. Maybe they have trees, maybe they are living in a multi-unit complex where the landlord just has no interest in going solar. For those customers, there's a great alternative called community solar. So this would be essentially virtual ownership in a community solar project. So you virtually own a number of panels in some larger project out in a field somewhere, or on the roof of a large community center or a church. There's a lot of different visions for what community solar can be. I think the next slide is that video that I promised. So again, encourage you to add some chats and some questions in the chat. And I may need to unplug. So Jeff, I'll be looking to you again for a nod to make sure that the sound works here.
Community solar is booming in Illinois. For the first time, you can enjoy the benefits of solar energy without having to install a solar system on your property. The basic idea is this: a company builds a community solar project somewhere in your electric utility territory. You enter into an agreement to pay that company a subscription for a share of that project. Each month, the project sends electricity to the grid, and the owner reports the output of your share to your utility. And you get a credit on your utility bill for the electricity your share produced. So let's imagine that your home used 1,000 kilowatt hours, or kWh, of electricity in a month, and your community solar share produced 800 kilowatt hours in that same month. Your utility bill would be credited for that 800 kilowatt hours in the supply section of the bill. So on that month's bill, you would only need to pay for the remaining 200 kilowatt hours of electricity that you used, along with the delivery and taxes and fees sections. And then you would pay a bill to your community solar provider for the 800 kilowatt hours generated by your share, ideally with a discount applied. So in order to save, what you paid your community solar provider would have to be less than the value of the supply credits you received on your utility bill. In addition to lowering electric bills for subscribers, community solar can improve the power grid's reliability and reduce the need for expensive and polluting power plants, lowering market prices for all. So that's all you need to know, right? But wait, who can be a subscriber? How do I choose a provider? How do I choose an offer? Will I pay more? Can I end my subscription? Where do I learn more? Whoa. Okay, let's take this one at a time. Any residential or business customer can subscribe to a community solar project that's located in their electric utility service territory. But your income or client base may determine what kind of subscriber you are. There are two main community solar programs in Illinois. Illinois Solar for All is a state-administered solar incentive program that allows income-qualified residents and organizations that serve them to subscribe to a community solar project without any upfront costs. And any fees paid over the contract term won't be higher than half of the value received from utility bill credits. So savings are guaranteed. The other program is Illinois Shines. This is a state-administered program to support solar across Illinois, regardless of income. Unlike Illinois Solar for All, Illinois Shines Community Solar Program does not prohibit upfront costs, and savings are not guaranteed. This means that the program does not require companies to offer savings. However, all community solar offers we've seen so far do offer savings. To check eligibility requirements and learn more about Illinois Solar for All, visit IllinoisSFA.com, and to learn more about Illinois Shines, visit IllinoisShines.com. Both the Illinois Solar for All and Illinois Shines programs have strong consumer protections. But some offers may be better than others, and you'll most likely be signing a long-term contract. Check out the next video, How Do I Choose a Community Solar Offer, to learn more. CUB also created a website called solarinthecommunity.com, where you can find information about the programs and evaluations of each offer, including a comparison chart.
All right. And I do highly recommend that website, Solar in Your Community, from CUB. It's a great resource for community solar information in particular, and it links to some useful Solar for All information as well. So I did get the chance to review the chat. There's some great questions already piling up in there. I think I might answer a couple of them as I go, but for the most part, I'll save the Q&A section towards the end. But keep them coming in there. It's really helpful. And thanks, Cynthia, for dropping that link. Nope, we're not going to do that again. There we go. So this is from the CUB website. They've done some of that research to compare different community solar offers and work directly with some of the companies, I think in some cases, to help figure out some of the fine print and unpack it into a sort of comparison table. So again, recommend taking a look at that. There's a lot of great offers. And like that video said, I don't believe we've seen any that offer a premium product, meaning that you pay more for community solar. In all cases that I've seen, and I think that CUB has seen, it is savings. It might be a different level of savings depending on what company you tap into. So CEJA changes a few things for community solar and for general, rooftop solar. It fixes that solar cliff issue. So I think many of you had heard in the home stretch of fighting for the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act that the REC incentive, those state REC payments, had run dry. But thanks to CEJA, all blocks, meaning all programs, community solar, residential rooftop solar, commercial rooftop solar, all of those blocks had reopened on December, and in most cases are still open. Community solar, because it has so many projects bidding in and so much interest, it tends to only be open for a few days and then it closes and then it's reopened the next year and so on. Additional changes, though, are that, and this is significant, right? It allows for a single bill. So essentially, it requires the utilities to offer a program where you can pay back your community solar bill, which in most cases is a separate bill, on your electric bill. So instead of paying your electric bill over here and your community solar bill over here, and knowing that combined, they're still less than what your electric bill used to be, this now, it just shows up on one bill. It's so streamlined and elegant, and I wish we saw this everywhere, but it just does make it a lot easier. And while I won't have time to dig into it now, there is a new community-driven community solar category written into CEJA that incentivizes projects that are more deeply rooted in the community and have more direct pathways for ownership and wealth building for community groups and community organizations. So I would take a look at that. That is just really getting started in the wake of CEJA. Last, but certainly not least, and as sort of a core focus and passion of mine, is the Illinois Solar for All program. So Solar for All actually started through CEJA's predecessor, and it's one of relatively few dedicated low-income solar programs in the country. It is designed to overcome some of the natural barriers that I talked about earlier, especially around tax appetite, especially around the need to have enhanced consumer protections, and to ensure that low-income Illinoisans are really reaping an even greater solar savings than somebody who can just afford to pay cash outright. So the real crux, like the most important consideration for a customer or for any community-based groups who are on this call, is that it's available to anyone earning 80% or less of area median income. And I'll have a chart in a few slides that highlights what that means, but it is similar to the income qualification that other programs use. And in fact, most third-party eligible programs are eligible for this. So think SNAP or Medicaid. In some cases, we're starting to see automatic enrollment via some of the utility programs. So ComEd has this giveaway program that helps customers sign up for the community solar savings. So I dove right into community solar. I should flag that there are different sub-programs within Illinois Solar for All. There's community solar. There's essentially small residential. So think 1 to 4 unit residential properties, primarily single family homes. There's multi-unit, so think more affordable housing complexes. And then there's a nonprofit and public facility sub-program. We'll talk a little bit less about the nonprofit and public facility for this, because I think this is more customer centric, but it's another great program that supports a critical need infrastructure for both public and nonprofit facilities. There's just a flag about the giveaway program. It's somewhat innovative in that it is helping low-income customers who are already seeking relief in some way tap into a community solar opportunity. The Solar for All website, which I've linked on the right side of this slide, does have a list of all the projects that have been awarded RECs through the Solar for All program and are interested in subscribing customers, low-income customers. So you can see, right, this project supports 72 to 108 customers. This is a larger project that supports 400 to 650 customers up in Rockford. Take a look at the website, and especially if you're directly supporting low-income customers in Illinois, these are all really great opportunities. It's significant savings for those customers without putting solar on their roof. And now we'll pivot over to the rooftop solar subprogram. And I am, for these purposes, primarily thinking about single family homes or small multifamily homes. But here's the gist, right? It's free installation. So those that qualify are required to, essentially companies are required to have no upfront costs. And they are required by the program rules to offer at least 50% savings. So however much solar you provide, you're guaranteed to get at least 50% of those savings. That said, I believe all the current offers for Rooftop Illinois Solar for All are 100% savings. So to make a long story short, you get the system for free and you get the energy for free. So your bills, if you're a good fit for Rooftop Solar through Solar for All, your bills go from whatever they were to about $13.50, at least in the ComEd territory. So it's immediate significant savings. It's one of the best deals in solar in the country, as far as I know. Additionally, Solar for All across the board prioritizes environmental justice communities in selecting winning projects or those that are awarded RECs. There are requirements that the companies who develop these projects hire workforce development program graduates. And so it ensures that there's a steady demand for those graduates and for those sort of entry level, potentially disadvantaged workers to get into the solar industry. Most offers that I've seen are 15-year power purchase agreements, which I know we talked about earlier. But then essentially you own the system. The power purchase agreements is really how you monetize that tax credit that a lot of low-income customers can't tap into. So the company owns the system for those 15 years, and then they transition ownership to the customer in most cases. And sometimes it's sooner than that. And then you just own the system from then on out. There's some CEJA changes on the horizon. Some of those are still being finalized. The Illinois Power Agency, who's in charge of interpreting CEJA and developing these programs and guiding them, is still determining those final guidelines through their long-term plan. But there's two really exciting pilot programs that I know I personally would like to see in the final plan, the final guidebook. One supports deferred maintenance upgrades. So remember that slide from earlier with the wires and the roof. This would be for those customers who qualify, have a great sunny roof, but have some pre-existing condition in their home that might disqualify them for solar. Those conditions are often dangerous for that customer anyways, right? We should be improving housing stock and making homes safer and more comfortable and affordable. And so this does match some of that roof repair and electric infrastructure money with Solar for All. And then another would allow for more streamlined onboarding. So Elevate is the program administrator. This new pilot would allow them to manage more of the customer acquisition and reduce costs for everybody. There's also new integration with energy efficiency programs, which are already existing and already terrific. I think I over-animated this one. So dramatic effect, the Illinois Solar for All program pre-CEJA was $30 million per year, a significant budget. It's now $70 million a year, which is a huge increase. There's also a greater share of each of those. There's more funding. Essentially, the pie got bigger, and each slice of the pie got bigger too by eliminating another program that was a little bit of a drag on Illinois Solar for All's funding. So there's a ton of new opportunity and money, like more than we fully know what to do with now. And there's a lot of work to be done to find the customers, to enroll the customers, to qualify the customers, and to support this really exciting program. And again, I think I hinted at this, but the Rooftop Solar subprogram in particular has leftover funding. This is the income qualification, right? So you can see a family of 4 in the Chicago area would need to make $63,200 or less. And it depends on the area. Different areas have different income thresholds. And this is, again, if you follow the money, right, there's an even higher state incentive. That's how this works. The REC incentive is even bigger for Solar for All. And so the company, through their power purchase agreement, they're able to use those federal and state incentives to provide free power to the Solar for All customers in all the cases I've seen so far. And just to bring us home, this was actually a customer that I met when I was providing Illinois Solar for All and working with a company to try to make it work. This is Letice, and her husband is on disability. Her grandson who lives with her is disabled, and $120, $130 a month electric bills were just too much. And so she was really excited to go solar. She was not just excited about the energy bill savings, but was thrilled about getting natural resources from the sun. And so she was one of the first customers, I think, in the state to have solar through Illinois Solar for All. And her bill is now about $14 a month. And she's able to reinvest in other parts of her home. I talked with her a few months ago, and it's just been transformational. So I hope we'll see more of these programs. I hope you all will join in helping to make this program succeed. And that is it. That's my email address, and that's our website. Please feel free to reach out with additional questions, but I will try to get through as many of the remaining questions as I can in the time remaining. All right. So we'll start, to be fair, we'll start earliest and then make our way to the most recent. So one question was about the challenges of a slanted roof versus a flat roof installation. And the questioner notes that a lot of urban roofs are flat, right? A lot of two flats or flat roofs. It is slightly harder, right? Typically a slanted roof with shingles is more conducive to solar. It's already at a slight tilt towards the south or towards the horizon at least, which makes it a little bit easier. So it can be a little bit more expensive to do a flat roof. It often requires a little bit more hardware. You've got to sometimes have cinder blocks to counterweigh the panels that are sitting on a flatter roof. It's not impossible though. And some companies might just decide they don't want to keep that equipment on hand to do flat roofs. But if you call around to a couple companies, I'm sure you'll find one that'll give you a good quote. So long as your roof isn't blocked by trees or by another building, chances are you're still a good candidate for solar. Hank asked about the CEJA battery rebate timeline. So that docket essentially let me dewonk it a bit. The Illinois Commerce Commission, who are the regulators for all things energy and public utility, they're still hammering home those rules. My understanding is that it shouldn't take any longer than 6 months and could be within the next 2 or 3 months. I suspect companies will start, I think they're pretty excited to offer solar or storage opportunities. So I would probably just start looking online to see what companies are offering storage and get a few free quotes to figure out what that might look like. I think the ICC would also have some additional info. I suspect Cub and Vote Solar and others in this community would be able to blast out some additional info as well. Karen asked about the forecast for the costs of storage, of ratepayer subsidies for the rebates for battery owners. I have not seen any forecasts about that. So I assume we'll see some soon through the ICC process of finalizing the storage rebate, but I haven't seen anything to date. Cynthia, you asked about requirements or incentives to participate in demand response programs. For everyone else, demand response is essentially just incentivizing, in this context at least, it's incentivizing customers to utilize either their appliances or perhaps a battery to shed power or provide power during those peak load events, right? So imagine it is, it's a hot day, everybody is cranking their air conditioning, there's a ton of strain on the electric grid, ComEd is freaking out, they're trying to figure out how we're going to get power to where it's needed most. And the idea would be that you incentivize customers to maybe turn off a few devices and perhaps turn on their battery to discharge power back into the grid. The way that we're starting to see that happen is by requiring participation in demand response programs. So I do believe that the policy, I think there was a CEJA trailer bill that now has net metering customers eligible for the storage rebate. Those customers, to my knowledge, would be the only ones who don't have to sign up for some type of real-time pricing policy. So I know both Ameren and ComEd, as they've proposed their storage rebates, do require participation in that type of demand response pricing. So, and you ask if there's enough community roof space on schools or public buildings to provide solar to much of the community. Yes, typically, I mean, the short version is that there's a ton of roofs that are great for solar, and they should go solar to offset their usage. There aren't that many roofs that are so big that they have that much excess generation that they could then offset the load of somebody else or host their own rooftop community solar project. But there are way more roofs than you might think that are good fits for rooftop solar. And so anybody who can go solar should go solar. Jeff, you mentioned for owning like rooftop solar, are there maintenance costs over time? Surprisingly few. They don't really need to be cleaned necessarily. You might get like slight gains by cleaning them every few years, but rain does a hell of a job of keeping them relatively clear, or at least clear enough. So there aren't really a lot of like ongoing operations and maintenance. Anything can happen, and there might be some issue that crops up where you'd have to bring somebody out. A lot of companies offer fairly solid warranties or policies or guarantees in some cases to ensure that some of that unexpected operations and maintenance is covered, but there aren't that many regularly occurring needs for maintenance. So the costs for maintenance are really low. How can I initiate a group buy for solar for my community or subdivision? Great question. First, I would probably direct you towards Cub. Cub has done some great work in group buys in the past. I know other groups in Illinois have done that as well. So maybe somebody can help Christina in the chat if somebody has more information there. Vote Solar doesn't directly coordinate a group buy. Typically, the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, MREA, they do a lot of work to facilitate group buys. So that can be a good place to start if you don't see anything else. What is the subscription cost that ComEd is covering through the Give Array program? So I don't know enough about the Give Array program to weigh in too helpfully there. I understand they're using shareholder money to help offset like the customer acquisition costs that may come up, or just like the infrastructure that they need to run that program. But I'd worry about weighing in too much deeper just because I don't understand the back end of that program enough. Another question is, great question about woman-owned businesses entering the sector under CEJA, and in particular Southern Illinois, and providing training and services. So this wasn't part of today's presentation, but CEJA, on top of everything else, provides like a revolutionary new model for equitable workforce and contractor development. The new system of workforce hubs, contractor incubator, and contractor accelerators, they are all going to get started within the next year or so, courtesy of the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. And they are specifically designed to support disadvantaged businesses. A lot of it will be hammered out. The specific rules will be hammered out by the Illinois Commerce Commission. But there's a need to provide a lot of training in a lot of parts of the state that have often been left behind by past economic transitions. And so I would keep your eyes and ears peeled for announcements from DCEO, announcements from the Clean Jobs Coalition, as those training programs start to get up to speed. And Karen asks if ComEd and Ameren are requiring enrollment in real-time pricing, or is it enrollment in any demand response program? I believe that Ameren is allowing customers to select one of 3 demand response programs, and that ComEd, really there was only one program that felt like it qualified based on the legislative language, just because of what they already offer for demand response programs and pricing. But again, it's sort of evolving as we speak. So that intel might already be outdated, but great question. Oh, and Cynthia added the Chicagoland group by. Glad you're on here, Cynthia, to keep posting links and asking questions as we go. I think that brings me to the end of the questions with about 3 minutes to spare, which I didn't fully anticipate. So maybe I'll pass it off to the IEC team to bring us home.
Yeah, you just did amazing, John. Just already tweeted about how much you love solar. So when you get back to your computer. So just wanted to thank everybody so much for participating. We got a lot of links that were shared today, and we're really grateful for John. I think we have one more of these Clean Jobs Coalition Lunch and Learn scheduled, and it's on electric vehicles. So just sign up in the same place you've been signing up if somebody wants to throw a link in for our next one. And if folks have ideas for future ones that you want to see, just send us a note. We want to make sure that we have all these videos, and we have recorded this. It'll probably be up online this afternoon, and we'll be sharing with anybody that wants to see it. Yeah, and I don't know, John, if you send us the deck, we can upload it into the YouTube link. So thank you all so much. Thanks, John, for sharing all of your wisdom with us. This is really helpful. I know I learned a lot. And thanks to everybody for joining. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks all.
Bye,
See ya.
everybody.